Welcome to episode 144 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing Ben Cresciman. He's a director and screenwriter who recently shot his second feature film, a mystery thriller called Sunchoke. Ben started out, as many of my guests have, by just going out and shooting his own micro-budget feature film, and then things slowly snowballed from there, so stay tuned for that. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Over on iTunes, I want to thank Pablo Vizcarando, who left me a very nice review over on iTunes. Thank you for that, Pablo. It's very much appreciated. These iTunes reviews really are helpful. It helps get the podcast listed in more places in iTunes so it reaches a broader audience. Also, if you subscribe to the podcast, then you'll get the new episodes downloaded to your phone each week automatically. So that's a nice, convenient way to stay current on the podcast. If you have a moment, please do leave me a review on iTunes. Again, they are very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 144. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide: how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So a quick few words about what I'm working on. Once again, the main thing I'm trying to push forward is The Pinch. We're in post-production. The Pinch is my crime action thriller feature film now that I've been talking about for the last few months. We're in post-production doing editing. I did get the official website for the film launched last week, so you can check that out if you get a chance. It's a pretty simple site, but we have lots of stills from scenes of the film, actual camera shots of what you'll actually see with the film. We also have a lot of behind-the-scenes videos and pictures. Some of you may have already seen the videos. I did push those out as we were shooting, but all those are contained. We have a little teaser trailer, and as I said, lots of production stills and lots of behind-the-scene images. So if you're just curious to kind of get a look at the film, definitely check that out. The website URL is www.thepinchfilm.com. I will link to it in the show notes, but again, that's thepinchfilm.com. I've got an email list. You will see if you go to the website, it tries to get you to join the Pinch email list. I'm going to be sending out updates to that list specifically on The Pinch. I won't necessarily be sending out any selling your screenplay stuff through that list. That will be really that list will really be devoted to The Pinch, and then as I go forward with other films, probably the other films that I'm working on, but not so much. It won't revolve around the selling your screenplay stuff. That will be obviously on the Selling Your Screenplay website. In terms of my own screenwriting, I polished up the first act of a low-budget romantic comedy. It's about 24 pages, the first act, very low budget, really just, I think there's just 3 speaking roles in these first 24 pages, really just 2 or 3 locations. I'm presenting that to my writers group tomorrow night, so hopefully I'll get some good notes on it, and then I can finish up the polish before I start something new. So that's what I'm working on. Now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Ben Cresciman. Here is the interview. Welcome, Ben, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can give us a quick overview of your background, kind of how you got into the entertainment industry, and maybe even before that. Did you go to film school? Were you one of these sort of young kids running around with your parents' video recorder making movies? Kind of how did you get started in the business, and then take us all the way up maybe to directing and writing and directing your first feature, Negative Space?
Cool, yeah. I definitely was that kid with the video camera, for sure. We had VHS-C. Do you remember that one? It was like the mini tape that sits inside the bigger tape that you put into the VCR.
Yep, I remember those.
Yeah, like And so, yeah, I was running around making movies with my friends, big into stop motion G.I. Joe films. That was a big one. And, you know, I'm from LA, so, you know, there's a proximity that's kind of inherent to the entertainment industry. Also, my uncle was a production designer, not like, you know, the world's most wildly successful production designer, but did some really cool movies. Sort of The Last Picture Show was the first film he worked on. And so I always kind of had it in the background, but my family was definitely opposed to me getting into film. Because as, you know, I mean, at least in my uncle's case, and my mother, she wrote for TV a little bit before I was born, and they were both, their perspective was it's not consistent enough, it's not a viable career, even though it sounds great, you know, save yourself the trouble. But they were obviously really lousy at convincing me, so, you know, I kept pursuing that. I majored in film at Bard College, and sort of got my start just kind of figuring out, I don't know, what interested me. And, you know, I mean, I've always been a film fan, but when it came to, you know, what is my own work going to look like, I think it, you know, it started there in college. And then after that, I spent some intervening years working as a freelance editor. I was editing skateboarding videos for a while, and eventually moved on from that and started directing music videos. I directed a couple of music videos, very small, and like an independent, you know, $1,000 pilot that me and my friends made, a comedy pilot that was only funny by the graces of the really hilarious actors in it, and not at all from my writing. So I kind of realized I needed to turn from that. And in 2010, I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I feel like something's got to happen. I'm either going to go to film school or I'm going to make a movie. And so I applied to the MFA program in screenwriting at USC and no other school, which is probably not the greatest idea, but I knew I didn't want to leave LA, and frankly wasn't all that interested in driving all the way across town to UCLA. So USC was a choice, and I got put on the wait list. And it was sort of a moment of, okay, well, that's probably not going to happen. Gotta make a film. And that was sort of the beginning of Negative Space. That was April of 2011. And me deciding that one way or the other, I needed to make a film. Kickstarter had just sort of become a thing. And so I thought to myself, okay, it's possible I can get some money together. And I know that I had a house that I was able to use, and some friends that were really willing to help me out as far as producing and acting in it. And so I went off and I did that. And we raised $10,000 off Kickstarter and then ended up with a little more. And we made this tiny little film up in a house in Wall Canyon. And then the week after we wrapped production, I was accepted to USC. So it was sort of a last minute, like, are you in or out? And I just sort of said, I'm in. And in a sense, I kind of put the filmmaking on pause because I had to focus on grad school, though. I mean, we edited Negative Space through my first year of school. And yeah, I mean, that's sort of the long and short of it, I guess.
Okay. And so you mentioned that in college you majored in film. Was there a specific, was there something specific within that major? Like, then you mentioned that you were editing skateboarding videos. Did you learn to edit in college? Did you just learn that on your own? What exactly did you learn in film? Was it just film theory? Was it production? Was it screenwriting?
Well, it was sort of all of the above. I mean, Bard is it's a very small liberal arts college, very, very into sort of interdisciplinary work, and also when it comes to film, is not a super narrative-focused department, which in some ways, is really exciting because you can be as weird as you want with your narrative work, and people won't necessarily bat an eyelash. Mm-hmm. So yeah, editing. I mean, I taught myself to edit on Final Cut. with the help of some, slightly more experienced friends. And that was in college, and certainly learning the kind of basic fundamentals of screenwriting, that was in college. And just kind of learning, again, what about the films that I loved do I want to kind of internalize and put forth into the world. I think that's where the voice started to grow. It didn't fully evolve for many years to come, yeah.
So let's talk just briefly about the Kickstarter. You mentioned you raised about $10,000, and that was early on in the Kickstarter, sort of as it was starting. How did you go about even raising that much money? Was it just, friends and family? Did you have a publicist? How did you kind of get enough, people coming to your page even to raise the $10,000?
Oh yeah, just friends and family. It was very grassroots. We didn't really have anything going for us. One big advantage came in the form of, early on in the process, I got connected with Roger Films, who produced Negative Space and also produced Sunchoke, and they sort of generously, back in 2011 when they didn't even know who I was, offered to essentially give me whatever equipment that I needed to make the film. And so that we knew we had some kind of expenses covered. So it was really about, what are the essentials, what do we need in terms of cash on hand to just get through this really, it was an 11-day shoot. What's the very minimum we need to get to that? And, we started at 10,000. We did raise a little more. I think we ended up around 20,000. And so it was, it was not an easy process. I mean, that was, nerve-wracking every day. You're checking the page, but we made it. And, with a little time to spare and a little extra money. And so it was, I was really fortunate to kind of maybe have one of the, less painful experiences with crowdfunding.
Yeah. So tell me, what happened once you got Negative Space done? Did you submit it to film festivals? Did you eventually find a distributor for it?
Yes and no. It was submitted to film festivals. It did not get into any film festivals. Part of that was, I think, an issue of, what I know now about the film festival world is that it's a really, really competitive field, and especially at the larger festivals, the top-tier festivals, the odds are astronomically against you. And so I think it's with a different festival strategy, it might have seen more of the light of day. But I think so it hasn't been distributed, but I think what we're going to do like a self-release thing once Sunchoke is kind of fully out in the world, and we can shift our focus a little bit.
I see. Perfect. So let's move into Sunchoke. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick pitch or a log line for the film.
Sure. I always pause on this one because it's like, how do you really reduce it into a sentence or two? Essentially, it's a psychological thriller focused on a young woman and her caretaker, her lifelong nanny. They live together in a sort of isolated house at the top of Beverly Hills, and it tracks their strange relationship and the odd and sometimes insidious health and wellness regimen that the nanny kind of subjects our main character Janie to. And then, of course, what happens when our main character is let out into the world and bad things happen.
Mm-hmm. So where did this idea come from?
Well, it started as a character study, really, just of these two women living in this house, and one was a caretaker and one was the ward, and it's just as I realized more and more how twisted these people were and how lonely. That was really a big component, was just, I had found these two really lonely people and started discovering that loneliness was driving them to do really, really terrifying things. And that was fascinating. And so, once I kind of keyed into that, I was off to the races, and it was just about, let me not be afraid to go wherever they take me.
Yeah, yeah. And did you know some people like this? Like, did you know someone with a caregiver? Like, what was sort of the genesis of this?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I've not currently. I've been in therapy for different years in my life, and so I think there's that kind of caregiver relationship I'm familiar with. Mm-hmm. And certainly, I knew kids growing up here in Los Angeles that were, I don't know, they were, had parents who were kind of rich and constantly traveling for work or pleasure, and were in large part raised by nannies, who were left to their own devices, and that can produce really interesting results, both in the real world and in fiction.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your writing process for a minute. And we can kind of maybe be specific with Sunchoke, but maybe if Sunchoke is different than how you've written other scripts, maybe we can kind of talk about that as well. But just how much time do you spend preparing to write? How much time do you spend kind of in the outlining stage versus the actual open up final draft and start writing the script?
Most of the time is spent outlining, ruminating, pacing around my house. Mm-hmm. The writing process itself is always pretty quick, because for me, it's really important that I don't sit down at the computer with no idea what I'm trying to write, because there's nothing more intimidating than that, that blinking cursor, Mm-hmm. And so for me, yeah, I write pretty much everything out longhand, spend a lot of time in notebooks, and then when I feel I'm ready, I'll sit down at the computer and then inevitably realize that I need to go back to the notebooks for a bit. Then I'll come back and, maybe I'll do that a couple times even, but ultimately by the time I sit down to really write the thing in earnest, it comes, it can be in Sunchoke, 3 or 4 weeks. The first draft was done, but that was after a couple months of really sitting with the idea and thinking about it, but that's fairly typical of the way I write. I mean, like I said, it's important for me to know that I'm prepared and know that I'm not going to run down any blind alleys that I don't have to. I mean, that's part of the process, to be sure, but at a certain point, there are things that you can do to be better prepared, and I guess the neurosis in me really requires that preparation.
Yeah, yeah. And so a day of writing for you, what does that look like? You're talking about the outline stage where you're pacing around your house, just writing in a notebook. How many hours a day will you do that when you're in that mode? And then same thing with actually writing into final draft. How many hours a day will you spend actually writing on that?
There's not necessarily a set number. I mean, a lot of times I'll go until I'm gassed out. Some days that's 5 hours, some days that's 15 hours. The outlining process it's a lot easier for it to kind of blend into the rest of my life, because, they said I'm pacing or I'm walking my dog or I'm exercising or, like all of those, you're writing at all those times. And so getting through all of that, and then, you get to the writing stage, you just sort of sit down and do it. I mean, it's using a train of thought a little bit, sorry. I think, mostly it's really about, like I said, until I get gassed out. I mean, I want to put in as much work as I can on any given day. I will beat myself up. I'll beat myself up, if I don't feel like I've put in enough. But ultimately, it's sort of about what kind of energy I have. But once I sit down at the computer, that's when I will kind of force myself into. I mean, it's like once I'm starting to feel gassed out, it's like, okay, then 2 more hours. Because with a first draft for me, it's about getting it out. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be the thing, the perfect version of what you had in your head. it's a document to work from. And so that first draft for me is, really about just charging ahead and getting it all out there so I can, you lay out the sheet so you can start to iron out the wrinkles.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned that this story sort of started as a character study, and I wonder how you approach screenplay structure. If you're starting out with just characters, at what point do you start to structure this out, with a beginning, middle, and end?
Well, it's sort of an organic process at Sunchoke. It was, let me, as I said, a lot of it, there's a lot of outlining early on, so I'm spending just a lot of time with them alone before what essentially, the first act is, we're breaking into the second act. She's essentially getting out into the world and finding this young woman and kind of, seizing on her in that sort of weird stalkerish way. But, it was important for me to stay with them in the house, just the two of them, as long as I possibly could, so I could know, who they were and how they did literally everything that they did. And so, it was really just about kind of writing the story of their lives until it started to take shape, until she got out of the house, until she found this woman and started intruding on her life. That's when the structure starts to come together, because you're starting to see, okay, these are the stakes are becoming clear, the conflict is becoming clear, and the train is kind of leaving the station. And so I think, the structure kind of came out of the characters and their experiences.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at a film like this, and I have a lot of, sort of genre filmmakers come on the podcast, and I'm always curious. This is kind of a mystery, suspense, thriller, and I can see how a distributor would be interested in potentially getting behind this film because it has those elements. As a writer, how do you approach that? Was this something you were aware of going into this process? Hey, I need to write this sort of suspense thriller because that's what will sell, or was this just an idea you had and it just worked out to be something that somebody would want to fund and ultimately sell?
Well, I think definitely more the latter. For me, when I was at USC, what I discovered about myself was that writing genre films is where I'm at my best and where I'm having the most fun. It's like every genre that you pick up, whether it's a horror film or a crime film or an adventure movie, sci-fi, there's a different toolkit, there's a different set of tropes and waypoints and devices that you can use. And so I knew going into Sunchoke that I wanted to look at the horror toolkit and see what of that I could utilize to kind of bring this character study into a different place, because I didn't want it to exist simply as a character study, but it also was never going to be kind of simply a horror film either. So, I think finding out all the opportunities that genre film afforded me made it too irresistible to not really give it a go with Sunchoke.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about kind of your rewriting process just for a minute here. How do you know when a script is finished and ready to show people? And then the next question is sort of, what does that look like for you, getting notes, and who do you send it to?
Well, how do I know when it's good enough to send? I guess at the point where I don't completely hate it, I tend to be hard on myself, as a lot of writers are, and I'm always looking at, whether it's a finished work in my, like a finished film or a first draft of the script, my eyes are always on the mistakes. And so once I'm not wincing so much at a draft, that's when I'll say to myself, okay, let's get it out there, let's get some thoughts, see the forest above the trees a little bit. Because, at a certain point also, if you don't tell yourself, all right, it's time to show it to people, you can just never show people anything. And, you don't want to get into that pattern. And as far as who I show early work to, my editor, who's cut both of my films and who's been a friend since college, he sees all my work pretty early. one of my producers at larger films generally sees stuff, and my manager sees stuff. I try to keep the external voices to a minimum, just because it can get crowded and confusing. But it's definitely important to take that moment to step back, stop working on it, and focus your energy on listening to other people's reactions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so once we were done with this script, or maybe you even already had some sort of a deal set up, maybe you can just talk a little bit about that. What was the next step? Once you wrote this script, you had a draft you like, did you start taking it out to producers? Kind of how did you bridge that gap between having a script and actually having production funds to shoot it?
Well, essentially, I kind of put it to myself and everybody around me that I was going to approach Sunchoke the same way I approached Negative Space, which is to say I was going to fund it off Kickstarter for whatever I could get. I would use as minimal, set and, camera packaging, everything that we could do to keep it small, we would do. But I was going to do it. That was, there was no doubt in my mind I was going to make the movie. And so I had the first draft, and I sent it to my producers at Larger Films, and they really liked it and wanted to be involved. And so we started talking about, how we might do this at a really low budget level and what it would take and, what kind of concessions we would need to make and what kind of, crazy deals we would need to strike with people. And all the while, I'm working on the scripts, and it's getting better. It's, rewriting for me is a huge part of the process, and as you're reading it, as you're seeing it get kind of exponentially better in that rewrite phase, and I think as the guys at Lodger were seeing, they ultimately said to me, look, we think the film is, that the script is going to be too good to make for like $30,000. We should start looking at ways to really make it. And on the one hand, that's a really lovely thing to hear. And on the other hand, it's like, well, I can maybe probably get $30,000 off Kickstarter. I don't know what kind of numbers, you guys are thinking of. But I guess they did some thinking on it, and they were at a point in their business where they were ready to take a bit of a leap as well. So ultimately, they put up the funding. There was a little bit of outside as well, but yeah, they really took the initiative and said, we're going to get behind this 100%, and that's what they did.
Yeah. So maybe we can even back up a little bit there. What's the name of this company again?
Roger.
Okay, and how did you get the relationship with them? How did you build that relationship?
Well, remarkably enough, when I was making Negative Space, my first film, one of the lead actresses, a very dear friend, is married to a partner at Larger Films, and they were all having dinner one night, and this actress said, I'm working on this film with this, weird, guy who's trying to, make a movie for nothing, but he's, it's an interesting idea. She sort of told him about it, and they were sort of like, oh, well, have them reach out to us. Maybe we can help them out with some camera gear or something. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. They helped out with camera gear and coordinating and helping us get a crew and a lot of that stuff. But when it came time for Sunchoke, I had, as I said, just come out of the NFA program. I had a stockpile of material, and I was working on this new thing. And, I think myself and the guys that are always knew we wanted to make another film together. And when Sunchoke kind of came to be, it was the right project at the right time. Not too expensive, but demanding enough that everybody has to cut it up. And so, it was sort of another challenge for us that they were ready to take on.
Yeah. Okay, so how can people see Sunchoke? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yeah, so it comes out here in L.A. August 5th. It's playing at the Arena Theater in Hollywood on Las Palmas. So, if anybody's in L.A., come see it. It's also available right now on iTunes, every other digital outlet, cable, VOD, PlayStation, all of it. So very easy to find, and yeah, check it out.
Perfect. And so what's the best way? I always like to just end the interviews by asking the guests if they use any of the social media platforms. And if people just want to follow along, kind of keep up with what you're doing, what's the best way for people to follow along with you?
Cool. Yeah, you can. I'm on Twitter at BJ Cresciman, Cresciman, and you can film on Twitter and Instagram, both at Sunchoke Film.
Okay, perfect. I will round that stuff up and I will put it in the show notes. Ben, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Interesting interview, and I really wish you the best of luck with this film.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
I just want to mention two things I'm doing at Selling Your Screenplay to help screenwriters find producers who are looking for material. First, I've created a monthly newsletter that will be sent directly to producers. Every member of SYS Select can submit one logline per newsletter. I went and emailed my large database of producers and asked them if they would like to receive this monthly newsletter of pitches. So far, I have well over 350 producers who have signed up to receive it. These producers are hungry for material and happy to read scripts from new writers. So if you want to participate in this pitch newsletter and get your script into the hands of lots of producers, sign up at sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And secondly, I've partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads sites so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, I've been getting 10 to 12 high-quality paid leads per week. These are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material or are looking to hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These leads run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas. Producers are looking for shorts, features, TV and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects that these producers are looking for. And these leads are exclusive to our partner and SYS Select members, so you won't find them anywhere else. To sign up, just go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Also, I recently set up a success stories page for people who have had successes through the various SYS Select services. So if you want to check out what some of the other people who have tried our services are saying, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. So now, just to wrap things up, I want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Ben. I talk about this a lot on the podcast, and it always amazed me. And Ben is, I think, a prime example of just listening to his story about how he went out, made a super low budget film, and that then ultimately snowballed into this, much higher budget feature film. And it's just a function of Ben went out there and just put himself out there, put his work out there, made something happen, and that kind of just snowballed. I've been amazed at how many great people I've met through the making of my own film, The Pinch. Obviously, a lot of the cast and crew were new people that I met, but also I've had a few people on this podcast. A few of the filmmakers I've interviewed on the podcast, they actually went back and listened to the episode that they were on, and I'm talking about The Pinch in virtually every episode, and so they heard that. And a few of these people have actually contacted me, say, "Hey, tell me more about your film. Hey, maybe I can help you with production. Maybe I can help you with finding distribution." So, just putting myself out there has helped me meet new people. I've also had a few producers who I've worked with over the years. These are producers that like my writing. They've optioned something or maybe just read something that they've liked. And, I've been in touch with some of those people and mentioned to them that I'm working on this feature film. And it's just the old, saying that hustle is contagious. These people they already kind of know me a little bit, like my writing, and now they're starting to email me. "Oh, well, tell me more about your film. Oh, well, when you get it done, let me know. I have some contacts in distribution." So all of these people could potentially help me find distribution of the film, obviously. But in addition, I've just gotten to know them a little bit better, and you never know what could happen down the road. This business, is so much about who you know and networking and meeting people, and it's such a collaborative business that these contacts are precisely what you want to. That's the value in getting you're building your career, is getting to know these people and getting to work with these people. And as I said, just getting my movie out there is helping me to get to know some of these people. And some of these people I knew before. As I said, there's like some of these producers that I knew before, but to them I was just a writer. They read my material. If they couldn't do anything with it, that was kind of it. And now I'm starting to get to know them a little bit better. They're a little more impressed with me as a writer producer than they were with me just as a writer. And as I said, you just never know where these connections are going to lead, but ultimately that's where, how you're going to make your break, and that's how you're going to move up in the industry, is by getting to know lots of people that are hopefully maybe a little bit further along in their careers, and they can help you along, and then vice versa. Maybe you'll be able to turn the tables and you'll be able to help them with their careers. But it's really a matter of just getting material out there, whether it be scripts, whether it be shorts, or whether it be feature films, getting stuff out there and putting yourself out there and putting your material out there. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.